Hey, it's the first of the month. This is Warcraft Weekly, that's Bob, and let's get to the roundup. Today's episode is brought to you by Raymond Martinez's Salty Tears. Salty Tears represent your favorite faction the best way you know how, with Salty Tears. Today's weekly roundup, the first round of experiments that I'm doing this week with splitting up the news across the week as it comes. Past couple mornings, you folks at home and on the toilet have been hearing me run my mouth for about half an hour or so about the news, my initial reactions, and responding to some live commentary. So what are we going to do today?
Absolutely nothing.
Not absolutely nothing, but instead we're going to go over some of your comments, over just a really quick mention of the things that went on this week. Because obviously the community always responds with a clear head and an open mind. So let's get started. WoW had put out an article describing that in the battle for Azeroth, tank threat is going to be nerfed, and depending on how you're putting out that threat, it could be nerfed by up to 80%. I've mentioned how this might have some pretty big repercussions in certain areas such as Mythic Plus, but that overall, at least for skilled tanks and DPS that happen to listen to those tanks, that it wouldn't be that much of a big deal. Apex Gelfing wrote, "What is the highest Mythic Plus that you've done, Soul?" Yeah. Opinion validated. Whatever. Linda Lisa says, "I'm glad to hear about these new tank changes." Unyao Ing says, "Yay, skittish is now permanent, lol. I don't think it's going to be an issue if DPS GCD changes stay constant. Because even right now in Skittish Mythic Plus, the only issues tanks have is with burst threat, and warriors were looking at you. So if DPS burst is toned down, then status quo." Personally, I don't think the global cooldown changes are going to necessarily cancel out the reduced tank threat, but I do think it's going to just kind of ease up on the hyperbole that's going around right now. In a blue post, Blizzard asked players for, I guess, post-mortem feedback on Mythic Plus in Legion. Two things I brought up were the big conversations about possibly punishing players for leaving early from a Mythic Plus run, as well as my personal gripes on the plus 15 chest, which, at least in my opinion, is a source of toxicity. Siren Watcher says, "I agree with your statements about the 15 key. I feel that for anything, it makes people learning, doing keys from plus 2 to a plus 14, feel worthless when they're swamped with thousands of players at a plus 15 level who arguably shouldn't even be queuing because they haven't done the prior grind, so they don't know the strats properly, who are likely to just bail based on the fact that they just want your key." Chris Bennett says, "I think maybe a buff for Mythic Plus if a player leaves, something like Determination and Deserter debuff for like leaving Battlegrounds. The buff would have to be limited to making the group whole again and not overpowering it. I still feel very strongly that punishing leavers is not the best solution."
Yeah, execute them. What?
The solution for early leavers should not be to force people to stay, especially if the group legitimately does happen to suck. Another Before the Storm preview was put out, and by the way, the book comes out in a little under 2 weeks. This particular preview was a letter from Anduin to Sylvanas. It was all prettied up and fancy looking on an image, and I decided to read it out for everyone in a video. And naturally, this happened. "That's my king. I am so proud. Great letter for the Alliance. Such a great letter. Too bad Sylvanas is going to take it around and backstab her own people and spit at Anduin for allowing a peace meeting with fallen family members and the living of Lordaeron civilians. I hope the Dark Lady kills the boy king and turns him." I wish this letter came out first. Did Sylvanas reply by letter back to Anduin? I'd like a reading on that one too, if possible.
"She did write a letter back, burning down Teldrassil."
And the following day, I decided to take that letter and trash talk it. I know, I'm such a horrid cuck.
Yeah.
But this letter gives us one of the few glances that we have at actual politics between the Alliance and the Horde. Actual diplomatic relations that we can break down and deconstruct and twist to rewrite a certain narrative, which I tried to do. And I think I sort of twisted this letter to make it look like Anduin's exercise in ignorance and hubris. I strongly encourage that you either read or listen to this letter, and I'm gonna have links for like everything below. But I want to pose this little follow-up question. Basically, the letter is an invitation from Anduin to Sylvanas to have a sort of meeting between certain Forsaken and certain citizens of Stormwind, all for smoothing out relations and keeping nice with each other. The question is, while this is something that Anduin wants, Would this be something that Sylvanas would ever want to suggest? Personally, I don't think so, but what do you think? Leonardo says, Anduin's letter to Sylvanas shows how dedicated he is to peace, yet at the same time shows how ignorant he is on how much bad blood there is between the Horde and the Alliance. Lore Walker Yu says, please don't ever write a diplomatic letter to anyone. You'd come off as desperate, unsure of yourself, with too weak of a position. No one would hold any kind of summit or meeting with you because you're giving them too much power. And that rounds up the news up till today, so was that fast enough?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, let's get to this week's beta build, which was deployed on a Thursday, which is why you didn't see me talking about it earlier. There's a snobby-ass bird battle pet that you can get as long as you have 1 million gold in your current inventory.
What?
Francois is this chicken-looking thing that you can find over in Tiragard Sound. If you happen to have 1 million gold in your inventory, you talk to this pet, you get the option to get a pet from him. For real? At least you're not buying it for 1 million gold. There are far better things you can buy with 1 million gold.
Like your name?
Hell yeah, you're damn right my name was worth 1 million gold. Pfft. Additional rewards for island expeditions have been deployed in this build, adding to the idea that Azerite is the biggest thing that you're going to get from these expeditions, and in fact, they're supposed to be the biggest source of Azerite too. Beyond that though, are cool cosmetics such as this hat, candle hat, and pets, and pets, and pets, and the best pet. Dude, that's a drunk crab with a hat. Actually, this one wins it. I don't know where to get it, but it's a one-handed mace, and God, it's a high-res, fish of violence. And there are a bunch of scenario updates and quest updates, spoilers and such, but this is, for a change, not going to be a very spoiler-filled weekly.
Amazing.
But I do want to at least take this last part of the weekly to talk about, just kind of update everyone on the relative or the speculative timeline between now and the Battle for Azeroth. Thanks to the 2 previous comics, we're finally getting updated from way back in the day when all we had was the Seething Shore Battleground, and that was officially the latest thing that had happened on Azeroth. Since then, we finally got an idea of what Jaina Proudmoore has been up to, as depressing and dull as that is. We had a small but emotional update from Magni Bronzebeard, but now we're at the edge of really gearing things up. Next week is going to be the 3rd and final comic of the series, and we don't know who's going to be mentioned yet. My guess is going to be someone who is more aligned with the Horde, since we've seen a human and a dwarf in the previous comics. The week after that is, finally, the Before the Storm book.
When waves of salt and anger will wash over both the Horde and Alliance, drowning us in shit and drama.
Should be fun.
Hella fun.
The expectation is that the Before the Storm book will fill in pretty much all the gaps that had happened ever since Legion. What's expected after that, because we still haven't seen it yet, is the event that will have us kind of say goodbye to our artifact weapons. Maybe after that are going to be the events in Darkshore. What's very interesting though is that in this beta build, we got some clarifications as to what's going to happen there, but more importantly, because again, I don't want to spoil stuff, what we have so far, it's still not done. What's going to happen in Darkshore is going to be very heavily story-driven and meaningful and, narrative pushing, but past that we get world quests in Darkshore. The Horde and Alliance are presumably going to be duking it out. Also presumably, if this in fact is all going to be in the pre-patch for the Battle for Azeroth, War Mode might be a thing by then. So what we're going to have during this pre-patch period is going to be a series of events that's going to stretch out even more than I had previously thought. The series of events that kick off Darkshore up to its conclusion could be greater than just the one-day little shindig that we might have thought. The quest and the narrative, they might extend out a number of weeks. From there, we proceed to the Battle for Lordaeron itself. Basically, a lot of the stuff that happens in that cool cinematic. If I'm right about even some of this is a pretty neat contrast compared to Legion. If you recall from the Legion pre-patch, it kicked off with a really big event, the Battle for Broken Shore, and all the drama that happened after that. Then we had the invasions, the movement from Dalaran to Karazhan, and then finally the launch when Dalaran moved from Karazhan to the Broken Isles. And in this case, and I'm still speculating, for all we know we could be wrong, we're moving from this progressive questline in Ashenvale and Darkshore, and with it culminating in the big thing, the Battle for Lordaeron. And there's still a little bit more that might come in between. If you recall, there was an audio drama that was written by Robert Brooks and narrated by Stephen Pacey. There's at least a small chance that this could happen again, which I think would be another really cool filler while we're waiting for all this stuff to go down. So with it being the 1st of June, with only 2.5 months or so left until the battle for Azeroth. Are you excited? Are you hyped?
No.
Okay, maybe not. We're still kind of getting a trickle in of content and other stuff to read that'll get us, up to speed. But maybe you need a little bit more positive energy in your life.
So maybe I should stop living here?
So, friends, I'm a little curious what do you think of the new format. For our first week of doing it this way, I admit that it's a little bit shaky and there's a lot more that I need to do throughout the week in order to get some stuff out, but at the same time, it kind of makes today a little bit easier. We'll just have to wait and see how it works out. Part of the idea is that I want to participate in some of these conversations a little bit sooner rather than later, get some commentary and reactions, and celebrate some of that on the weekly roundup. As kind of an introspective, I think that one of the weaknesses of doing stuff throughout the week is that one, it's half an hour long. It's kind of a lot for a person to digest, but this is also new. The aim of the Warcraft Daily is to have something that's anyone can just kind of click on to get an audio read of, what's been going on today or just previously. Here's some reactions from me personally, get some live reactions from people who are watching, and that's about it. So far, I'm having fun with it, but I would love your input from those of you who watch. That sort of stuff means the world to me. I hope all of you have had a good week, and regardless, I'd love to have you share your wins, your losses, your drama stuff, anything that happened here in the world of Warcraft or in the, real fleshy 3D world. Next week, expect more fun, violence, and shenanigans. If you're interested in becoming a patron and being one of the people that influence the lifeblood of this channel, feel free to take a look at a link below, pledge your support, or otherwise support me the best way you know how, so I can keep giving you this and all things Warcraft. You all have a good one, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.